Hey everyone, it's Joe Beethoven, and I'm back for another masterful review, and this time, it's of what I consider to be a genuinely masterful game, Until Dawn. After the past couple weeks of reviewing not as good games, you can watch those yourself and see why. It's refreshing to come to an absolute winner, one that I know is great, one that I always enjoy, one that is reliably awesome, terrifying, and engaging. I know I'm gushing a lot in the early parts of this review, but if you've watched my previous video, you know I already love Until Dawn. I already talked about how I loved it. So really, get ready for a gush fest. Get ready for a praise fest for Until Dawn because I love this game. I'm so excited to tell you why I love it. So let's get into it. What makes Until Dawn so great? What is so special about this experience, this first supermassive interactive narrative horror game? How is it so special to me? On with the review. Let's find out. So let's get right into it with the story and the characters, the things that make Until Dawn so special. The game focuses on 8 teenagers who are clearly played by 30-year-olds, but that's okay because it's a classic horror movie trope, plus the actors are all fantastic, but we'll get more into that later. Anyway, the kids are hanging out at a lodge on top of the mountain owned by Rami Malek's character Josh's parents, and his sister Hannah is into Mike, who is dating Emily. Also, Hannah has a twin sister, Beth. Okay, that sets the stage pretty well, I think. Now, some of the friends get this idea that it will be funny to prank Hannah because she likes Mike, but this unfortunately really hurts Hannah's feelings, leads to her running out into the snowstorm. Beth chases after her. The two of them meet a really weird-looking guy with a flamethrower. Sadly, they fall off the mountain and are both seemingly killed, and the rest of the group thinks they've just disappeared and has no idea what happened to them. Pretty sad opening, actually. It really sets the stage well. You understand the characters pretty quickly, and you understand why the upcoming events take place as a result of this really tragic opening. So it's pretty brilliant, but also it's kind of hard to get through, honestly. It's pretty upsetting. So I would understand if this opening turns you off, but if you keep going, I promise it's worth it. There is fantastic payoff to this tragic but powerful opening. After this opening, you discuss your deep-seated fears with the analyst, brilliantly played by Peter Stormare. And this guy, you can immediately tell there's something going on here. He seems to have a little too much understanding of you as the player. It's kind of creepy, but also really engaging. He appears throughout the game between pretty much each chapter to check in with you, make you really think about the decisions you've made, and some of the things you've said to him throughout the course of the game will actually affect what you see. It's more of a cosmetic thing, but it's still pretty cool to have you influence the story in this way through your conversations with the analyst. And he's a really cool character in his own right, even though he's not one of the main ones. But keep your eye on him. There's something up with him, for sure. That reminds me, I'm not going to go into major spoilers in this review, just in case you haven't played this game, which is a bummer because there's so many things I want to say about this game. I love it so much, but I'm going to avoid talking about the big twists just in case you've never taken the time to play it. Anyway, we jump to 1 year later, and also a brilliant opening credit sequence with the song. I don't think it's actually called Oh Death, but that's like the main line of it, and it's really well done. It's super scary, sets the stage well for what's to come. And we start the game off with Hayden Panettiere's Sam, who has been invited back to the mountain by Rami Malek's Josh. In fact, all the friends have been invited back a year later. He says it's for healing, a time of remembrance, a time to honor his sister's memory with joyous celebration, the best friends all coming back together. Things seem to be looking up, actually. Sam arrives. She looks around for a little bit. We meet Chris, the funny man who's great. We meet Jessica, the sort of out there character, kind of like Emma from The Quarry, except Jessica has a lot more layers to her than Emma did. We meet Matt, the athlete who doesn't really have much spine when it comes to his girlfriend, Emily. That's right, now Matt's dating Emily. Then we meet Mike, who's pretty cool, but also kind of a jerk, and is now dating Jessica. That's right, after the whole opening pranking Hannah for liking Mike, even though he was with Emily, Mike ends up leaving Emily anyway and ends up with Jessica. Right now, it kind of just sounds more like a CW teen drama, but trust me, it develops. It gets there. So at first things are kind of slow in a good way. The building tension is there, the environment, the snowstorm, the music is all used even in these slower conversation scenes to build this sense of dread. The horror keeps growing even when seemingly it's just a bunch of here kitty jump scare moments throughout. You keep feeling on edge, which is something that The Quarry never really pulled off for me, and that was a disappointment. Anyway, the characters are all placed in their situations, and each one is put through the ringer in one way or another. I'm not going to do major spoilers, but I am going to talk about certain things right now. Mike and Jessica go out on their romantic escape. Jessica is taken, and this leads to the best QTE sequence ever, in my opinion. We'll talk about that more in the gameplay section. So that's Mike's setup and how he ends up in this old asylum, this old insane asylum, and that's his story, really. And then we have Chris, Ashley, and Josh trying to hang out, but then this leads to some interesting spiritual seeming events involving Hannah and Beth's ghosts. And now Chris and Ashley kind of end up in a haunted house style story. Meanwhile, Matt and Emily are looking for help as they are now trapped on the mountain with someone, seemingly a psycho killer. So they're out there doing their thing. And meanwhile, Sam is one-on-one with this seeming psycho killer, so everyone is in their own situation, their own kind of horror movie setup, but all these threads come together so well. It never feels disjointed. Each piece of the story is used to enhance what another character is doing, what another person is going through, and the choices you make along the way, in most cases, genuinely determine whether or not the character gets out of this situation alive. The collectibles you find help you figure out what's going to happen next, specifically the totems you find that show brief glimpses of the future, as well as the clues you find, which fill out the world of the game, as well as give you answers about who might be behind all this, or what might be behind all this, but we're not going to get into that. The characters all feel authentic as they face these terrible situations involving a psycho killer, Saw-style traps, chase scenes, seemingly some sort of supernatural presence. There's so much going on, but all of it works together to make a single cohesive horror narrative that pays off if you make all the right choices in the most satisfying way possible, the most epic and awesome way possible. The characters carry you through the story, but you also need to see what happens next. You need answers, because if you're stuck with these questions, you're going to be frustrated forever. At least that's how I felt. Fun fact, this was also the first game I ever binge played because my friend brought it over and I needed to play it before he took it back to his house. So I just played it all in 2 very long sittings. I think I played 4 hours in a row in both sittings, and it was just so thrilling the entire time. This is a narrative built on horror tropes, but also continually subverts those horror tropes. It gives you surprises while also giving you exactly what you want. For example, Matt, the African-American character, as is tradition with horror movies, is the hardest to keep alive. As you might know, in classic horror movies, the black guy usually died. And we all agree that that's kind of annoying, but it is sort of funny here that you have to work really hard to keep him alive. You essentially have to fight the horror movie trope. And it's the same for Jessica, as the sort of out there girl character in most horror movies is the first one to get it. You have to work really hard to keep her alive. The game uses all these ideas to make you feel like you're either directing a classic horror movie or building a whole new style of horror, building your own genre with your own type of ending, with your own character arcs. The characters could turn on each other, they could all make it to the end, they could all die, they could all hate each other by the end, they could all like each other by the end. So many things, everything is determined by you. Now, not every aspect of the game is fully controlled by you. There are certain events that will always take place, certain characters that will always get to some point in the game, because the developers didn't want to be unsatisfying if you got certain characters killed or made certain choices, but the majority of the game is completely yours to play with and control. And recently I made a bunch of choices for this review so I could show different things that could happen. And honestly, there are many satisfying paths through this story. While I am still partial to the one where everyone lives, which leads to the coolest climax ever, by the way, there is still a version of this climax where not everybody lives, and it's still pretty awesome. There are a lot of great things that can happen in pretty much every version of this story. As a result, whatever horror movie you choose to experience with this game, you're probably going to really love. And as a result, it's one of my favorite games of all time because I genuinely felt like I was in control, and I love games like that. The story of Until Dawn is gripping, surprisingly emotional, thrilling, horrific, yet you feel like an action hero at times too. This game does it all, and it does it all so well. Now we come to the gameplay, which is of course pretty similar to other supermassive games, but Until Dawn did it first and arguably still did it best. While you can't control the camera, most of the time movement is really easy. You're very rarely going to clip into a wall or get lost in the field of vision. Exploration is fun. You find really cool clues. The totems are really good hints about the future, even though they never give you quite enough to know exactly what to do, which is pretty thrilling if you ask me. And the QTE sequences in Until Dawn are the best I've seen in possibly any narrative-focused game. They are so exciting, especially the chase scene where Mike is trying to save Jessica. Each choice he makes throughout this chase determines what happens to Jessica. And you have to be really quick, you have to focus and not miss a beat, or someone's life will be lost. Other sequences include Chris fighting with a shotgun. I'm not going to say what he's fighting, but it's a fantastic scene. You have scenes with Matt trying to survive because he constantly almost gets killed in this game. Emily escaping the mines. Another amazing sequence. There are too many amazing action sequences and chase sequences to count in this game. You're always scared there's going to be a surprise QTE and you don't know which button prompt failed is the one that will lead to a character dying. You're constantly on edge. And it works so well, especially in Mike's visits to the insane asylum where he faces the other mysterious threat of this game, the more supernatural threat of this game. These are absolutely mind-blowingly horrifying sequences, super engaging, exciting, and I could not get enough of Mike's shotgun-wielding action or anyone's escape action. It's so well done. The QTEs are used perfectly in just the right amount, and they really make you feel like you're in charge of what happens. And of course, there's a don't move mechanic where if you move the controller at all, chances are you're going to get killed, and it's absolutely amazing and terrifying. You can, of course, cheat by just putting the controller on the floor, but why would you do that? There are too many fantastic elements of this game to name. The gameplay and the storytelling come together to form a perfect whole. Every aspect of this game holds up. It all comes together. I don't have anything bad to say about the gameplay or the story of Until Dawn. So I'm going to provide a very brief content advisory for Until Dawn. To be clear, the game is really clean. There are only a few very minor references throughout, some gross references every now and then, but the scene where Jessica and Mike are at their cabin and Jessica finds her phone leads to Jessica cursing and saying some very inappropriate things out into the wind, using the F word in a sexual context, things like that. So if you don't want to hear that stuff, which is my personal opinion, I don't want to, but that's completely up to you, don't listen to this part. Maybe mute it after she goes outside to yell at the wind, to yell at who she thinks is watching her. But like I said, that's completely up to you. This is just me providing you with something that I would want someone to give me. Just a brief warning. But overall, the game is very clean. So what's the verdict? Come on, you've guessed it. Until Dawn is a 10. I'm just going to get that out of the way. I could not stop talking about how much I love this game. You probably guessed it already. I have no flaws with Until Dawn. I believe it to be a perfect, interactive experience. It is a horror movie you can play. You determine what happens, what kind of story you want to see. I love it so much. The characters are engaging and relatable. The gameplay is thrilling. The story unfolds in the most satisfying way possible. Until Dawn is one of my favorite games of all time. I highly recommend you play it. It gets a 10 out of 10 from me. If I were to make a ranking of horror games, I would have to play more horror games, first of all. But if I did, chances are this will be in the top 5. In fact, it's guaranteed to be in the top 5. I love it so much. Really, if you haven't played it, please go out and do it. You will not regret it. All right, that was video review number 14, and I am on a roll. The supermassive content is going to keep coming. Next up is Hidden Agenda, then Man of Medan, then Little Hope, then House of Ashes, then a ranking. Lots of great stuff coming soon on the channel. I hope you won't miss out. I hope you'll stick with me on this journey. There's even a new type of video that I'm developing, a new concept for what kind of content I'm going to do on the channel, so keep your eye out for that. Be sure to like, share, comment below, and subscribe, and click the notification bell so you don't miss out on any upcoming Masterful content. Still working on a lot of projects. I really thank you guys for your patience. Thank you for your encouragement to keep making videos. I really appreciate it. You guys are awesome, and I hope you continue to enjoy this journey we are on together, this journey called life and gaming. Life and gaming. That's really what we're doing. We're playing video games, but it's awesome. I love doing this with you. I hope you love it too. All right, that's all for now. God bless you guys. I'll catchphrase you later, and I will say this until it finally happens. Alan Wake 2 is coming. Bye.